At just 15, Lucy Sugerman captivated millions in Australia when she won a place as a finalist on The Voice. Audiences were charmed by her talents as a performer, but they were also impressed that someone so young should present with such intelligence and composure. As we close in on a decade since that stark entry to public life, Lucy's only further forged that strong reputation through her committed work, personal growth, and refined artistic presence. It's hard for me to remember that she's still very young at only 23. Just this week, Lucy's off performing her own music at the world-renowned South by Southwest Festival, and she's marked by many for future success as a pop artist. She's released multiple singles and EPs, and is also a presenter for Australia's Triple J Unearthed. But past any specific accolades or professional aspirations, I'm really excited to talk to Lucy about the reality of what it feels like to be an artist today. I'm keen to better understand life in her shoes and what it means to keep your motivation and sense of direction as just one person with seemingly so many opportunities to choose from. Welcome to the Chris Endry podcast. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Yes.
My first question is a really, maybe a really obvious one, but I think maybe one that doesn't get asked that much. You're a songwriter. Why do you write music? Of all the things you can do with your time.
Man, this has actually been something that I've been really thinking about recently, because I think that it's something that has become such a normal part of my life that it's almost like a reflex. Like I write stuff almost when I'm in like of sound mind and not like, having a bit of a mental health dip, like I'm writing every day. Anything that happens to me, I got to write. It's like journaling.
That's so interesting because not all songwriters are like that.
Yeah. And I feel like I write my best stuff when I like have a concentrated time that I'm like going to the studio with someone else and have the accountability. But in terms of the why I do it, I think it's always primarily been to sort through my own emotions, and that also it's just really, really fun. But now it's kind of like, because I do at this point find the whole release cycle and music industry a little bit contrived for me personally. Like it doesn't necessarily, that part of it doesn't necessarily spark joy. I've started really thinking about like, okay, what can I actually do with this platform? What could I actually write about that means something that I care about, whether it's about my faith or like state of the world stuff or like that kind of thing. But I think like tapping into those topics, like it feels like the bar gets higher of like how much care you need to take with it.
Which is what you want, right?
Yeah, totally. So to answer your question, sorry, very long-winded. I think it used to be for very selfish reasons, which I don't necessarily think in this context is the worst. But I think I want to move it towards like, I guess, promoting more positive things or more constructive things. Like I think creating is always constructive, but I think also music is very powerful for people's moods and lives and things. And I want to be able to spark a bit more joy than depression.
Do you feel like you were inadvertently sparking depression, or is it just
a little bit?
You're being flippant, right?
There's songs, and I love a sad song, and I love to be able to relate to that. But I think also something happens to your psyche when you're always going to that place all the time,
right?
And again, this is just for me personally. Like I'm not, obviously, this is not authority on songwriting or anything, but yeah, I think that instead of like writing these like little blip pop songs that have like a sad bridge that would do really well on TikTok, I want to start moving towards more fully formed bodies of work and speaking my truth a little bit more. Like it's very easy to write about breakups.
I think that you're selling it short. That's not a valuable thing for people to have though as well. Like I guess it depends
absolutely.
on it depends on like this is just my own aggressively held opinion, but if it comes from the center of something that's true, that like that's a better distinction than is this gonna do really well or not, or is it like am I indulging in like I certainly agree that you can indulge in your own sadness or whatever, but if at the same time, I'm sure you've had this experience of listening to other people's music that's sad or a bit emotional, or not framed in a positive way to make you smile all day, and that really helps you through things, seeing that somebody has is going through an equivalent experience at the time that you're having it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I think I misphrased that. Like, I could never write super joyful music. Like, that's just not my shtick. Like, it's never going to be like, I'm happy and everything's good. But
You never know.
Yeah, it's true. You never know. I think that people that write that music, I don't know, are you being truthful? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'd still, obviously it needs to be truthful, it needs to be real. But I think there's a difference between like sitting in a world where I'm writing about the boyfriend I had at 19 that like did all these things to me and I was like, then like, I don't know. Not to diminish those feelings, and I think they're really important. But I think for me personally, I'm like, there's enough stuff about that in the world overall. And I think I want to just move towards, other life things. Maybe this is frontal lobe development. I don't know.
It could just be that you process those things for yourself.
I think I'm just a bit overpining. I'm just like,
right.
Girl, shut up.
That's really interesting because I want to talk a bit more about those positive things that you want to put more of into your music a bit later. But I want to know about you mentioned the release cycle and things like that, and you're at a really interesting intersection of things for me because you have a professional artist career that does require you to do all those things well and to sort of like you have to be on top of your socials in a way. You have to, be doing press releases. You have to be, just constantly networking, thinking about where you're playing, all those things.
Doing my socials, you say?
Well, you laugh, but
no, totally.
With a bald face, it's true. And the skill set to do those things and the motivation to do those things are so not only different, but very often the opposite of the skill set to sit down at a piano or a guitar and sort of open up and explore things. But you kind of have to be good at both of them now, but more, I'd say more than in the past. You can't you're in a very luxurious position if you can totally hand those off to somebody else.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely be the exception. Do you think that, how do you quarantine one from the other?
Man, if I had a good process for doing that, I'd be doing it more. I think I really actually enjoy those things when I'm doing it for someone else.
Yeah.
When I'm helping someone else do their socials, write a press release, when I'm, my friends always joke to me like, Lucy Sugerman promoting everyone's music but her own. Like, I love talking about music. And I think, I love trying to find, I guess, like, not to, be all businessy and commercial about it, but like finding the value proposition within people's songs of what.
Don't be ashamed. I think it's an Australian cultural thing to be ashamed of like finding something having a business value. Like all that means is that it's useful for someone. Like God forbid anything be useful.
Yeah, that's true. So I really enjoy, I think, that part of it. It's just doing it for yourself. Oh, nightmare. No, obviously, like, not actually like particularly strenuous or hard, but like what I mean is like it just tedious, again though. Feels so tedious and contrived because it's like, okay, here's my brand that is my name and these songs that are about me. Here you go, everyone, you should listen, especially because there's such an oversaturation of music. And so that comes back to what I was talking about before. Like I feel like I, from a business perspective, need to move away from that stuff and like start writing about things that I think are maybe a little bit different to what other people are writing about. Not that, and start exploring those more untapped worlds rather than sitting in breakup sphere. And so in terms of, I guess, staying committed to the promotion bit, I don't think I do right now. I think I've been very fortunate that things kind of, I just get emails, I get little reels, I get all these little things. I've been doing this for long enough, and also in like different facets with like my other roles in music and other little things, and made enough friends and connections over the years that I think it, to an extent, like obviously I have a very small audience, so I'm not saying by any means this is like the best way to do it, but like things do kind of fall into place. And I think, the music I've made so far is like objectively all right. So that helps as well. But in terms of being able to stay committed to doing those things, I really could be doing more. I could be hustling more. And I think that also to me, I'm not sure if it's because I just hate talking about my music and hate doing all that stuff and don't want to do it, blah, 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 or because right now I'm not super like gassed or passionate about what I'm writing about, and I'm in a weird spot of like weird hang-ups about my music. It could be a combination of both. And I think also the reality that a lot of music that you write comes out 2 years after you write it is also a weird thing, because then it's like I have changed so much. Like since Crumb came out, like the things I talk about in that song, I now look back at that and I'm like, girl, what were you doing? What were you doing? Like a lot of decisions in there, I'm like, and it feels very vulnerable and weird. But then on the flip side, a lot of people are like, I connected to this song. It's so beautiful. Like, I love it so much. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad I could bring that to your life. Like, that's very special. So I think kind of like take myself out of it is probably maybe the way to go about it. But it's a weird contrived thing again, because Lucy Sugarman's my birth name. Like, it's me. And I'm trying to promote and brand and package that. And when done well, when things work out there, pays dividends. But 99% of the time, not heaps of money there either. So it's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. It's such an interesting one. And I suspect it's a really, like there'd be other people, that you could get two other people doing exactly the same sort of spheres at the sort of relative levels that we both do them as well, and have entirely different conversations, because it just immediately strikes me that we're quite similar in enjoyment of certain things, and but there are people who love the selfhood projection and cultivation as a central thing, and the music is a secondary, tertiary, or even further down the list thing, and that's the thing that they need to struggle to rope in other people to help them get ideas for, like, oh, what's something I could do, or like what's a fun way to express that, or like I start off with like, this is the image of what I want it to look like, and now I have to furnish that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I've been kind of wrestling with in there is that, I've always thought and sort of consciously known that, that selfhood and really like it being me, to me personally is just like not how I want to live or what I want to do, and I think like comes back to like my opinions on social media and the rise of the celebrity and those type of things. Like, I don't objectively think they're the best, right? Not to like, crap on other people's roles or what they think, like that's not my shtick here, but I don't think they're objectively good. And I think that this sort of approach to it can really fall into that. And I've realized that because I've been, playing for audiences and grown up on social media and grown up in this era of like, this is my profile and this is me and here's a picture of me. I really subconsciously, even though I don't necessarily want to, derive a lot of validation from that, from comments on the internet, from the numbers, from all these things. And I consciously don't want to do that, but it really has become like a big part of like my self-worth. And that's in the same of like, I feel the need to like have this job and make heaps of money and do all these things and post it and blah, blah, blah. And I'm in a weird like area where I'm like, do I actually think this is good? Do I actually think this is bad? When things do go badly, like it affects me. And I'll post something and I'll be checking to see what the comments and the likes are. I'm not going to tell anyone I'm doing that, but I am. And it's a weird way to have your brain wired. And I don't love it. And so it's like, how can I rewire this? How can I reapproach this where I can still make this music? Because like you said, like we're very similar, and like the enjoyment of it, of the actual music itself, always comes first. But then there's this other part of it. And I'm like, how do I sort through that without completely giving up the amazing music thing and sharing it? And also the want to still reach audiences. Like I make this for myself, but also for people. So yeah, I feel like this podcast has caught me like in the middle of like sorting through a lot of that stuff.
It's an impossible, like, I feel like it's an impossible question that's sort of across all of society at the moment. And like, it's weird because you kind of can't imagine a successful music career of like an artistic project that doesn't also involve seeking celebrity and cultivating it.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps that's always been there, but it is more insidious in terms of the breadth of the reach now and the cost and I have a bunch of questions that I was going to ask you about sort of generational differences and things like that. But I mean, everything you just said is, I feel, as true for people in my generation. I don't know what, I'm 20 years older than you or something like that. And then I feel like it's also potentially.
Are you? How old are you?
I'm 39.
That's not 20 years.
No, but it's like, whatever. We're not the same. I got to grow up with a home phone. Like I didn't have a mobile till I was 17.
I actually had a home phone too, but I got my first.
That's
I
all
got my
we had.
first.
Like if you wanted to reach someone, you had to like hope that their mum or dad were around to pick up and hand it over to them.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to meet someone and they weren't there, it was like you just had to sit and wait for an hour. Yeah, I
kind of loved that.
Yeah, it was.
Bring that back.
I mean,
like kind of not, but also,
I think
you had to really trust
good.
people.
Yeah. And you had to ask.
It wasn't all instant
more.
gratification, mate.
Yeah, you had to ask directions. You had to borrow a phone. You had to.
Dude.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to romanticize it too much.
Now it's like I'll go somewhere in Canberra that I know where it is, and I still put it in maps. Just to...
Yeah.
So embarrassing.
Yeah, but Canberra, the streets are hard to know the names of, and everything's, like, you can get spun out to the wrong places.
It's true, but not so much here as, like, say, Sydney.
Yeah.
Also, I've lived here my whole life, and there'll still be, like, literally me going to, I don't know, like, the city from my house. I know how to get there. Anyway,
but it's changing all the time because of the light rail expansion.
Oh, of course.
It's a city on the move.
City on the move and the My Way upgrade, dude. Don't forget.
So, okay, you're at the intersection now of these emotional, like, of navigating that emotional stuff. It is really tough because, like, that stuff only exists because it has fed from a selfhood. Like, you can't you can't escape. Like, it's not like if social media or whatever, all those things didn't exist, you wouldn't be the type of person who would want to play and have people hear you, what you wanted to do, and, like, have that validated and all of those things. So it is a tough one to reckon with, because I often think, because I'm like you and I play, I mean, I'm not like you in any level, but at the low level that I'm at, I consciously played under my own name. And that was a choice after playing in other sort of, because I played in these sort of alter ego personalities for years. And I thought, no, I want to be accountable and have to, like, say the things that I actually think and do that under my name. But I often think, oh man, I wish I just didn't do that, because then I could, keep it as a game, like one rung removed.
Man, that's so real. I literally only just used my own name because I couldn't think of anything else that was better, that made sense.
You also have a very show business name.
I know. They said that on the radio last night. They were like, that's like, sounds like an artist. I was like,
I am an artist.
Thank you. No, it's very kind of them. But yeah, it is.
You don't need to protect them. They're not watching this.
They might. Hey, Nick and Lauren, if you are, true. Bless you both. Yeah, it is a really weird one. Sorry, I cut off your question. You were in the middle of something.
Oh, do you in this current intersection of things, do you seriously consider, floating something out at arm's reach and, redoing a project that, like, is just totally at a distance under some sort of other persona?
Yeah, constantly. I think the music always has to come first, so it's really about setting aside the time to write and sort through all these thought processes and all these things and give stillness and space, because I haven't done that for a long time. I've been working, like, at minimum 2 jobs at any given time that weren't an artist project, plus my artist project, plus, life and all the bits and things. And I've been so busy. Like, that has been the thing my friends know me. Like, I don't show up to stuff. Oh, she's busy. Oh, she's got a work thing. Oh, she's got this, got that. Which, I am grateful for that time. And I think it showed me that I could do it. but it also meant I never gave space for a single thought. And so I've only, like, the past couple weeks, I've actually been home, which has been about like 3-4 weeks now, is the longest I've been home, like fully, in like 2 years. So I just...
Are you like twitching at the side of your eyes, or like do you
No.
find that you're upending things to find occupations, or?
I think there's a lot of, to be honest, is that now that we're like well into January, there's a lot of things I need to get done that I just haven't, because I've now gotten used to just being able to wake up and be like, So yeah, it's actually been quite full on, which, as silly as this sounds, because I don't think anything that I'm thinking about is particularly like, life or death or crazy. But, I've had to actually sit with a lot of these challenging thought processes and feelings that come up, and had to really let myself think about them. And I have purposefully avoided that for a long time, I realize.
What's bubbled up?
What's bubbled up? A lot of things about music, a lot of things about my faith, and a lot of things about, like, how do I want to live my life? What do I actually want my life to look like? If I set aside every expectation and everything, how do I actually want my life to look like? What's important to me? What do I like doing? What does life mean? Blah. Like, all the big things, which I think are, you got to sit in them for a little bit. Like, I think there's a time to stop and just be like, okay, I'm on the earth. Like, I need to just do something.
Have to do something at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. But all of that stuff. And I think also, like, we obviously have great access to the news cycle, and lots of things that are happening in the world, and being like, oh, I wonder, am I still going to be able to travel? Is there going to be a giant war? What's going to happen to the environment? What's going to happen to all these things? And all of that stuff, I think the working was also so I wouldn't necessarily have to think about that. And now I am. And I'm like, ooh, weird.
It seems like, so I wanted to put off talking about these things till a little bit later, but it does seem like the gravity of everything keeps pointing to these same topics. So I'm going to chisel towards it slowly.
Okay.
So you mentioned all the things that you do. Like, you've obviously got your own, successful and growing artistic career. You're self-managed, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that in itself is already a lot to do.
Yeah.
You're a presenter on Triple J Unearthed. You will be working at MusicACT. And on top of this, you've also been studying towards a law degree. That's right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But these are a lot of, even just one of these hats is quite a lot for one person to have as an undertaking, and an impressive amount of an undertaking for one person to just have one of these things. So I guess, like, no matter who you are, there's corners of humanity that will leave you feeling alienated, no matter what type of person you are. I'm sure you can go into a room and be like shocked at what everyone's doing, or like not feel like you're a part of the same motivations and things like that.
Yeah.
You, by my measure, you're a pretty unique person, like, in a few steps. So I want to know, what part of what everyone else is doing do you find hardest to relate to? Like, what parts of society feel like they don't make sense to you?
That is a really big question. Okay, I'm going to sit with that for a second.
No rush at all.
Because sometimes I feel like it's very easy to be like, oh, they're doing that. That's so lame, blah. But I don't want to, I'm not better than anyone else.
You're not actually like that. Yeah. You're not like, I don't like this, therefore it's not valid or whatever. Like, or, I don't do that, therefore it's not me.
No, I appreciate that. I'm just thinking about it, that what everyone else is doing that I don't. Okay, this might catch me a bit of heat, to be honest. But I think one thing I have really struggled with, and I don't mean this in a like, I think activism is admirable and amazing. And
you don't need to hedge this. Just
no,
just
and I love
safe space.
I really value a sense of justice and people that stand for stuff. I think one thing that I've always really struggled to do is to be that person that is like standing up for all the big causes and repost stuff on Instagram and has the dialogue and blah, 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 like on the internet. I love talking about it in person. You know this. Like, I love talking about it with my close friends. And, I would say 95% of my friends have very different views on the world to me in terms of, because obviously I come from a lot of things from like a Christian lens as well. And most of my friends are atheists. So, I love those discussions, and I love learning about history and causes and challenging my own biases. But I think doing it on the internet, I a lot of time can't touch that. And I think I've had to really examine why. Like, is it because I actually don't think it's a constructive sphere that I personally can really contribute to, or am I scared? Or do I not have a fully formed opinion? And I think it's become a very trendy thing to like jump on whatever the cause of the month is. And no disrespect to people that are doing that work. And again, I haven't fully thought about this. This is on my to-do list of things you, Lucy.
We're not trying to attack what other people
totally.
do. I'm trying
I
to
understand
say
that.
what makes you feel like.
I understand that.
Yeah.
It's on my to-do list of things to like actually think about. Okay, why am I behaving like this? But I think that is something I've always really struggled with as someone that, like, a lot of my close friends know I have a very strong sense of justice and I say what I think in person to people. I really struggle with, I think, the tribalism on the internet. And then also, conversely, sometimes I'll read stuff that's like, why aren't you standing up for this thing? And I'm like, why am I not? What? So I think that part of the internet and culture right now, and I think also because it's very easy to like read one infographic and be like, yep, that's it. And it's like, how do you capture the full breadth of the issue? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's something I've been thinking about a lot.
You're preaching to the choir a bit, so I got to be careful to not alienate all the audience members that are not like-minded in this. But I really I guess I've also gone through the cycle of having been that person, so I really have no energy, no time for it at all.
To be honest, when I was 16 though, like I think that's a bit different. But I was like such a like internet warrior about it, and I just remember like I was so like post, stand up for everyone, blah blah, which I think again is like the principle of it is a very very admirable thing. But I also think back then, and also I was 16, so but I was like real extra depressed, anxious, and also said a lot of really ignorant things on the internet because I would read something and be like, yeah, how could they do that?
I often think that like if there is a hell, what it is like you have to go back and watch your life, like and watch everything that you did like the whole time and like, oh my God. And I also have to calm myself down sometimes because I think like because as you're saying, you release a song and it was something you wrote 2 years ago. And if you're writing from a personal place, often a song is like a totem of something you're processing. And then, that period will be, a particular anguish or a particular inflection point. And then after that, you're not that person anymore, which means, of course, going back, you're only going to cringe and be like, and find it shameful. But I think I've now at my ripe wisdom of middle age, I think that if you're not looking back at your recent past and cringing at the behavior that you did, or like thinking like, oh God, I would never do that now, it's so embarrassing, then optimally you're not developing.
It's true.
Maybe it's important to.
That is a good way to think about that.
Yeah, it's an optimist lens.
Yeah, no, but it's true. It's 100% true.
Maybe. So then another question I had is, in this generational gap, it kind of feels like to a lot of my peers, and I guess for people younger, that we're at a particular time where it feels like kind of everything is getting worse at an increasing rate. And new problems are popping up that we don't seem to be able to deal with, or we can't see how we will be able to deal with them. And I imagine that many people have thought this like all throughout history, and like it wouldn't be anything new. And it may be that things are pretty smooth and even, but I think there's a pretty fair case that if you look at the the rapidity of certain changes and the extent to which they've infiltrated our lives, etc., or like completely reoriented how we live, that they are stuck. But for me, this has been like, okay, it's been a ramping up thing of the last couple of decades or whatever. But for you, sort of graduate into adulthood at that point. Do you get the set? Is that how you, firstly, is that how you view things?
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely do. And I think the way I see it is that, like, because of these things, like the way we think and process information and also our own imaginations, not to be like super macabre or doomer, but like they've been hijacked. Like our brains are not operating the same. Our attention span is like this. Our like brains and receptors are getting assaulted every day.
I feel like I've just lost my entire consciousness somehow. Like, I feel like I used to I feel like I also, in my mind, have no time to do things like read or all these things that I absolutely materially have time to do.
Yeah. And I used to like, I'm like, this can't be the same brain that was reading like 2 books a week. This can't be the same brain that, I'm very fortunate I memorized my 3.5 hour cover set 5-6 years ago, because if I try to do it now, like I'm not learning songs as fast as I used to either. And I also look at like the musicality of the songs I used to write. And I think I've gotten better as a writer recently in terms of like sophistication maybe, but like just the creativity and imaginativeness, is that the word, that I had when I was younger is gone. And that also comes with age. But no, I 100% agree. Like I think the progress narrative like died a long time ago, because now we're like coming up with all these new inventions that are like kind of making things worse. Like
it kind of feels
AI.
Yeah, I've heard it called
AI.
the enshittification of everything. Like, like there's more of like high quality, next
like,
level stuff, and it kind of everything sucks more.
Quantity.
Yeah.
And because we're such a fast-paced society now, like no one's slowing down and thinking about things or taking care, or like, higher quality stuff takes longer. No one wants to do that. So yeah, I 100% agree. And it's been very weird becoming an adult in that, because now it's like, you grow up with this whole thing of like, okay, you're gonna go to school and then you're gonna get your degree and then you're gonna get this job and then you can buy a house. And then I can't buy a house on my own. Or like, you're gonna do all this thing and you can go do this, and this is the metric of like success of when you do this thing. And the government are there and they're like this entity that are, they keep everything in order, and they're not. And you grow up with all these like narratives about history and who people are and what all these things mean, and like, this big world organization is, and this really great, and this charity is great, and then you grow up and you find out, oh, this charity spends like 80% of its funds to like pay its staff and CEO, like things like that, and it's been weird to, I think, like, because now information is so accessible, like all these like simple narratives that kind of gave us the answers within like the realms of like science or politics or whatever, particularly, in this more secular age, are disintegrating right now. And I think that is because when you grow up with the like, this is how this event happened, and this is that, and here's like the government answer. And, people call me a conspiracy theorist, but we know that a lot of these like mainstream narratives are just like not it.
Oh,
they're not true.
It's. I feel like the last couple of years in particular have been like a hyper acceleration of the collapse of legitimacy of all of those sorts of conventional narratives for how how the world is, or like what systems are for, and who they're serving and things like that. Do you remember like a landmark betrayal moment where you first were like, oh my goodness, that's this thing that's been presented to me as a fact is a total myth?
Oh man, I don't know if I want to say this on here. You know what? Stop it. If you want to cut it out, I completely understand
I'm
that.
not cutting anything out unless you say something bad about me.
No. You know what? No. For me, I think I kind of grew up being like, that doesn't quite make sense. But I think a lot of it was the narratives around COVID. It really was.
Yeah,
It
right.
was the narratives around, from its origins to the ways it was policed and I think hijacked and had this fear sewed in. And then it was the narratives around the vaccine. It was the narratives around, oh, the 6 feet apart thing that we made you all do. Yeah, we just kind of randomly decided that, and then we made everyone
that
do
up.
it, and then we fined you if you didn't. And you could only have 3 people at a picnic, and if you did more than that, fine, jail.
I didn't get to see my granddad on the day that he died because he was only allowed 2 visitors a day, and my grandma and mum had already visited him. So me, my uncle, his son, and I, who we were 10 meters away from him, and we were masked up, and there were 6 cases in Victoria at the time. Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. And
Crazy that state power can be something like that. The cops are coming up to you in the park and like
necessarily the content of, all these things. It was the fact that firstly we all just kind of went, okay. And then when it was over, everyone like, just push it to the side. And I think that is a very confronting thing to me. And I understand that because the ordinary person is very stressed about their money and their immediate needs. And right now, like people's immediate needs can't be taken care of because no one can afford it. And so I understand that. But I think, it was 2021. It was through the lockdowns. It was through all the media things. It was, everything we were told versus the actual realities and things that are coming up now. Like that was sort of the breaking point of like, oh, I really have to like stay on top of this and do my best to look after myself and lean on, for me personally, and lean on God and lean on these things because, all these like big authority people are not going to look after me.
Yeah, I think it was a transformative crisis point for a lot of things. That's a really interesting one. I hadn't really thought about it too much, but for sure I can relate to a lot of things you said, particularly like for me. In fact, that was the turning point in which I left Australia, like mentally. I think. I haven't really fully reckoned with that yet, but and I'm surprised that people that don't connect the, like where you say people are struggling to meet expenses and things like that, like the inflation and the I guess the devaluing of money that has come off the back of, well, we in Australia spent 2 years basally being unproductive, almost,
and
but
printing money
and paying everybody. Like
yeah.
Why is that not connected in the narrative? It's just anyway.
Yeah, it's very, very strange because it's also like, they were putting out, and I mean, we all know that the modeling is, a bit like, but like even by, their own metrics, like John Hopkins Institute put out like a thing that, all these lockdowns and stuff maybe impacted things by like 1% to 2%, but like the impact on now, like our
every other well-being
workforce, education, excess death, like everything was insane.
It's very hard to,
and it's like how do you
make good decisions in those.
No, totally, and I completely acknowledge that, but I think that now that there's no discussion about that, and there's no like, oh, we're not going to do that again, or we do things differently. Everyone's just kind of like,
that's done, and which is so absurd because you can say with 100% certainty that there'll be another pandemic probably in our lifetimes. I mean, so you can't say 100% probably, but there will at some point again be a global pandemic, and it's very likely could be worse in terms of its physical impact, and we need to have the social robustness to deal with that. That's super interesting. Okay, then I want to. For me, it was I think the Iraq War because that was like no one in Australia wanted it, and we did it anyway. I was like, oh, I don't know. How is this a democracy? Like, how? Yeah, we're going to have to kill people at the other end of the planet. Like, why?
Yeah,
how can I pretend that this is the society it's been presented as? Anyway, to the faith. Faith was something that you turned to in response to feeling betrayed by collective reality or contemporary society, or that because you've pointed to it a few times. You pointed to it in that COVID period, but also you pointed to it, I think, most strongly as a result of people living lives that are full and occupied and but not necessarily more satisfying. I don't want to paraphrase you too much. You tell me, but that was that Is that where you turned to it, or was it something that was always
Yeah,
there?
I mean, like, I always believed in God from a very young age. I think it wasn't until recently that I realized what I needed to do about it. And I haven't grown up in a religious family. Like, mum believes in God, dad's like, oh, whatever. I went to church with my grandparents as a kid, probably till I was like 10. Went to a Catholic school, not Catholic, so go figure. But yeah, so it was kind of in and out. It was 2020 when the pandemic happened. I was like, something is going on here, and I can't really put a finger on it. Also, because as an ordinary person, it's difficult to be able to, make all these grand statements and grand judgments of like, what exactly is going on? Because my brain wasn't designed to fathom a global pandemic. I was designed to be eating berries in a field.
Whose was?
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. That is your point.
Yeah. But yeah, so it kind of like I started to really take it seriously and realize that I do believe that, this is the world, this is the reality, this is the story, this is what it means for my soul, this is the way, the truth, and the life, as they say. And it has been a very slow, ongoing burn, and I think it's something that because 99% of my friends and family don't see it the same. Like, a lot of people are like, what the heck?
It may be worth saying, because not everybody is from Canberra will be watching this, that it is probably culturally anathemic for you to be like you would not be. I have never heard anyone else that's in the spheres that we culturally share say the things that you just said.
Yeah. I live to be unpredictable. But yeah, it was through COVID that I realized that nothing on this earth is going to save me, and where, there's a reality of, I think humans are amazing and beautiful, and there's a lot of amazing things we do, but there are realities of human nature and how we interact with each other and our own immediate desires that I can visibly see that the only way forward through that is with God, is to follow Jesus. And so, and I think that's, a lot of people say that is kind of like an opium for a week. Oh, it's a cop out. It is actually, when you get down to it and you read the Bible or you really look at Jesus's life, everything about it goes inherently against my immediate desires. And it's actually very challenging.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So, I think I look at my life, like, if I was just doing everything that I wanted to do, I'd probably be eating a lot of junk food, be sleeping with a lot of people. Like, there are a lot of immediate desires that I have in my life where I want to lie to make this situation easier. I want to do all these things to make it easier. And I think that's our first reaction. Then we have a second reaction, where I think we have God-given consciences, and there is a natural law, and there's a thing that we deep down somewhere in there know is the right thing to do. And I think that the more I read the Bible, the more I can see that thing, I think, wrestled with and illustrated and also challenged throughout this text. And it's this is a really, I'd have to pull it out and start going through. I don't have it with me right now to really give it justice. So that's why a lot of the time at this stage of my faith, I am still doing a lot of learning how to communicate it a bit better and stand more firm in it, and that's why you've probably noticed I don't talk about it heaps, and I'm just practicing wrestling with these big ideas. But I think I realized that the only person that has truly walked that perfect life and walked that way that I think measures up to that intrinsic natural law that we all experience is Jesus. And so for me, I want to strive, and I'll always fail. It's kind of like a curse of the human condition, but I want to strive to live like that. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I mean, I've got a lot of subsequent questions. Can you give can you give one example of something that, because I don't know anything about the Bible, so can you pick a lesson that you've taken from it and how that helped you in navigating something? If you would be so kind to have.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like a good one. Oh.
True is good. Doesn't have to be big.
Yeah. Look, I think it this podcast has caught me while I'm in the middle of my like spiral about my entire life. I think that
it's all spiral.
Yeah, I know. Life is a spiral.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, I've been looking at my life and I realized that I do a lot of things for myself and I don't go out and serve my community the way that I would like to. And I think that's an ongoing lesson where it's like the Bible inherently calls us to put others first. And I think, going back to our thing about selfhood and a lot of modern society's obsession with like, do what makes you happy, put yourself first, do all these things. And, to an extent, obviously you need to take care of yourself. I totally acknowledge that. I think, I realize that a lot of the things I do and the things I choose to talk about in public spaces and the things I choose to go to or attend are very self-serving, and then I wonder why I feel so empty after it all. And so like this is a very broad example, but yeah, I you look at Jesus's life and it was always about the people around him and being and you be obedient to God in that way in which you take care of everyone around you first. And I think that's something I strive to do more in my life now, which is why I'm taking a step back from like the big job and doing all these things and posting and blah, 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 because it's like I've neglected a lot of my family relationships, a lot of my friendships, and been kind of holding on to this like arbitrary temporary idea of success so much. And I realized that that's not life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like probably if you were to do a random poll, probably 80 to 90 out of 100 people would feel that they are that they are in some sort of deficit with their personal or familial relationships because they feel like they're too busy pursuing, employment things or, the responsibilities that they feel that they have. And it's so interesting to me because like, if you look at any sort of graph of how wealthy the population is, or even if you just look around at the stuff that we have that, just didn't exist, a few generations ago, and we have heaps of it, or like, the space that we live in, the ease with which we can do things, you would think, like, if you were to guess, if you were to go back 200 years and say, hey, in 200 years, you're not going to have to worry, you don't have to go and, lug water out of a hole with your arms or whatever. Like, you're not going to have, like, I mean, obviously there's plumbing, but any number of things that you could say you wouldn't have to do, you'd be like, wow, my life would be so much easier if with all those things happened. And yet I don't I'm not convinced that people think of their lives as easy, or that there is a concomitant benefit, particularly given there are so many costs for hyperproductivity and consciousness occupation. All the information flows and things like that.
Yeah, and the way I see it, like if I had all the answers to these things, I wouldn't need God. But I think, I look at a life and so far, and there's been a lot of things that I've been protected from or moved away from, and I'm very grateful for that. And I do feel like there's a thing looking out for me, in a lot of ways, and a lot of crap happens in the world. And for me, just with my experiences so far, it's just like I want to lean more into that. Because I think I've always come at things from a very intellectualized, modern, like productive, like this is the thing, and we're girl bossing all the time. And that has always left me feeling very empty and strange. And so, it's just like this time of stepping away from that for a bit, I think.
Well, I'm really curious to see what comes of it, because you are such a naturally productive and capable person, but also in ways that most people are not interested in putting their energies. Like, most people who are very conscientious don't write songs. Most people who like to do a lot of stuff in a day don't, hang out and share music. Like, it's, it tends to be split traits often, but you
I think
carry them on.
contrary to popular belief, like I haven't been doing that as much as I could over the past year. That's been another big thing. Like, I'm not.
This is actually something I was going to come up but before. I think there's a perception that because when you present a finished product to people, like you're showing, like, if you've got a video clip, it's not you sitting at a computer writing press releases. It's going to be you hang out with your friends playing music, or like an instrument singing or something. And so I think, we think of the musicians that we see as people who are doing that all the time, but it is probably less than 10% of the work itself. And the earlier question I was on the cusp of asking about, I kind of asked, how do you protect one from the other? Then what about in the other direction? Like, how the next time you sit down at an instrument, how do you divorce that from, the concept of, like, if you're hitting record on your mic or whatever, like, are you writing a Lucy Sugerman, in PTY LTD, or are you just exploring, or are you, do you even bring that consciousness, like, oh, now I'm trying to write this type of song?
Depends on the day. I think the thing that I love about songwriting is that it happens differently every time. I think there are certain things that are easier for me to fall into, which tend to be the Lucy Sugerman PTY LTD style of music. Like, that's very easy for me to do, to be honest.
That doesn't devalue it.
No, not at all. So I think in terms of going forward from here with this new type, I think I want to just try, like, see what happens and start listening to other genres and working with people maybe I wouldn't normally go for from different genres, and just see what happens and try, like, bring that creativity brain back in, because I feel like it's been a bit of autopilot brain recently.
I love the idea that, in I guess 2 years' time, or whenever you're releasing the things that are up now, that we'll be getting to see that with the extra fervor of, like, these are not just the things that I made because I can and because I like to and because they're important to me. These are the things that are important to me to share, and, like, they're filled with something extra that I'm hoping to give, to offer to people. That's really exciting.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, like, you caught me in the middle of the transition period where I'm like, oh, what do I actually think about this? Why am I doing this? Which I think I also avoid, because there's a part of me that's like, oh, girl, like, don't need to be all philosophical, just, like, pick something and do it. But, it's kind of fun to sit in that, like, mental wrestling thing, because our brains have capacity to do that. I think that's kind of fun. But,
I think it's probably important to do both, like, at different points.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm just going to glance over my things that I wanted to bully you about.
Yeah, we've been on so many tangents.
No, actually, we've been hammering on the same theme, Lucy. It's great.
But also, like, also a lot of these questions and these topics, like, people don't ask me about them. And so
I've been a radio guest as an artist, so I know what you get asked. Like, oh, and what's this song about? That must have been quite the breakup. My God, I went on ABC Canberra, I reckon, like, for maybe 4 years after I was, like, trying to be a comedian, and I said, just introduce me as a comedian. They're like, musician Chris Andrew. And then after, when I stopped being a comedian, they'd be like, comedian Chris Andrew. I was like, oh man. Like, honestly, for some reason, nothing makes me feel less seen than when I'm being spoken to directly by a journalist who's trying to find out things from me.
Oh my gosh. Yep.
Yeah, anyway. Sorry, that's a whole other thread of complaint. This was the question I was going to ask. How to get at it? Okay, so you are doing law. That's a very, very for the artists that I know, that's a very common hedge for the really capable ones to do, like, because there's kind of a delegitimacy to just being an artist, not just a perceived delegitimacy, but it's, it is, like, I think the average artist wage in most disciplines in Australia is about 15 grand a year, which you just can't survive on.
Yeah.
So you do, and if you're a high grade getter, then law is a safe, proven path to being able to make money. But how much of that is for you a hedge that you see yourself throwing yourself at? Because it hasn't come up in the conversation at all, except for when I've introduced it.
That's another thing I've been thinking about. Look, I'm halfway through, so I'm committed to finishing it, because
that wasn't the question.
Honestly, like, I don't want to be a lawyer at this point.
Most people with law degrees aren't lawyers.
No. Sounds terrible. Sounds like a lot of work, and you can do something way easier for the same amount of money. But I think for me, honestly, and a lot of people are like, that's not a very good reason. Like, that's a lot of debt, blah, blah, blah. I know that a tertiary degree and the commitment to it and getting an education and sticking to it is a really big thing for my mom and for my grandma. Because, they always say education pulled this family out of poverty, which is true. They, came to this country as refugees from Vietnam, and my grandma sacrificed everything and gave everything for her kids to be able to build these lives, and now I am enjoying the fruit of it. I'm the one that grew up with a stable family. I'm the one that grew up in, upper middle class Canberra and got to go to Catholic school. And if I wanted to go on this school trip, like, I could, and I was able to have music lessons and have all these things that make life really rich. And so, that's the kind of the thing that they're like, oh, we want to see our grandkids graduate, get the degree. So that's a really big part of it. I'd also say that a lot of the things that you do learn in your law degree are very useful. I've really enjoyed the fact that you kind of get to dive into the mechanics of so many different areas of life. Like, law is essentially like I guess, regulating and writing down the ways in which we deal with each other, particularly in conflicts, in any, I guess, disputes.
I know what the law is, Lucy. You don't
I know
need
that.
You don't
I know.
just give me definitions.
For the context of the listener, just to, like, think about it. But
for the moron listeners out there.
No, but I didn't think about the law that way until I started studying it. And I really enjoy that. Like, I enjoy learning about it. And there's been so many times through my studies where I've been like, aha, I now can make sense of this part of my life. Or, if I need to do X, Y, Z, I know the type of thing I need to be looking at, even though it's on a very general thing. Like, I'm not an expert by any means. And I really enjoy that about it.
It's very rare that a second-year law student doesn't consider themselves to be an expert. So well done.
And so I really enjoy that part of it. And the other, like, and again, do not ask me to give you an actual example of it, because I'd have to pull out my books and remember it. That's the other thing. My memories is but I think I also just enjoy, like, seeing, what parts of the law or legal system have actually made it into, like, pop culture and, like, the general person's psyche, or, like, what stuff was drawn from. There's a lot of things in the Bible and the legal, like, Westminster legal system that, like, this and, like, and intersections of natural law and law as we know it today. And I love that stuff, like, the actual, like, I guess, mechanics of it. It's really cool. I love learning about that. Would I work in the legal system? No, I wouldn't survive. But those are kind of the reasons for it.
Maybe not now, but I'm sure that if you chose to do it and it was something that you found your way to, you would not only survive, you'd thrive, like, in everything that you do. Which brings to the last question, which is also another greedy question, and it sounds like one that's already at the undercurrent of everything you've been saying. But the question is, what do you want? How do you conceive of that?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I've never given myself the space to really consider that. You know, I've done like life coaching or gone to like whatever or read a self-help book or whatever. And I've never, ever been able to make myself sit down and answer the questions they give and really look at my own desires. And I think where I'm at the moment is that there are so many things that I can't control. And I know that I, as a little me human, am at the mercy of so many things. And in the face of my religion, like I'm at the mercy of, you know, the sovereign God, as they say. Like so many forces and other people's decisions and nature and world events and all these things. And so I know it's such a cop-out, but I find it very, very difficult to actually think about that. And so right now, what I want is just to be able to sit back and be still. Like I'm still gonna work and do my music thing and do the kind of immediate things, but in terms of bigger picture, it's like, what's gonna open up? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what I want, because I've thought that you know, for the longest time, I thought I wanted to be a pop star. And then I realized, oh, there's a lot of things that come with that are bad. And I'm so glad that it didn't work out now, because it's like, you know, again, sorry to get all bloody religious, mate, but, you know, we believe that as Christians, like, God can see all these things that we can't. Like, a lot of my own desires are very short-sighted. I don't know what's on the other side of it and all these things. And I don't know the other repercussions that come with things, and everything that I've wanted so badly that didn't work out. As we know, like, you know, the saying, one door closes, another door opens. Everything happens for a reason. Like, I wholeheartedly agree with that from like a faith lens. And so sorry to, you know, have a huge cop out, but I think what I want right now is just like stillness and space. Because I've been working 7 days a week for like 2 years. You saw me, I was working on my bloody holiday. It was silly.
Yeah.
So that's what I want right now.
That's not silly and not something you should apologize for. I mean, it sounds like it could be a wisdom of the time to want space for reflection and peace, to not
it's a very privileged
be
thing
occupied.
to do as well. Like a lot of people can't, and I'm incredibly grateful that, you know, within this 2 years of hardcore work and also just like working since I was about 13, 14, there are now things in my life that I can kind of get enough income to be able to survive, you know, the month and not work every day. It's a very privileged thing. So
you work very hard. I wouldn't apologize so continuously for the privilege, particularly when you're not asking for the jewels to which you're entitled for. You're asking for a little bit of space to sit and think about what life means to you. Yeah. I'm going to end there, Lucy. That's really a lovely final thought. But do you mind if I go out to our listeners with a song that you wrote, but I was in the room for? But you know, therefore, it's a vibe. It's a co-write vibe.
Oh, is it Daydreaming?
No. Oh, can I?
Is it Almost Forgotten?
No, I was going to play Forget to Forget It.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do that. That's my favorite.
All right. Excellent. Well, I'll append that to the end of this. Thank you so much. And thanks from all the listeners too.
Thanks,
we really
everyone.
Appreciate it.
Hope half of that made sense.
If you listen back and be like, oh, I don't think any of that, then come on again. And, you know, we'll have the Lucy Sugerman correction hour. I don't think we'll need it though, but I would love to have it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Chris.
I've watched the seasons turn for 10 months now, and I still keep coming back to your color. Maybe I only want what I can't have. Though I know I am much too late. You came with someone else today. But for a pretty minute, I forget to forget it. I'm underneath this house, fluorescent light, and we go through all the same conversations. Rinse and repeat, I see you all the time. I keep on searching you for consolation. All my friends are sick of all my whinging, I know. I'm the first to scream that I should just let it out. So I pour your wine glass, babe. I feel your eyes look my way, and only for a minute, I forget to forget it. Though I know I am much too late. You came with someone else today. But for a pretty minute, I forget to forget it. You become a stranger. I still want to know you. Fantasies forever, honey. There's always that someone making shit come undone, even when they give you nothing. You become a stranger. I still want to know you. Fantasies forever, honey. It should have made me give up, but the heart wants what it wants. So I pour your wine glass, babe. After your eyes look my way, and only for a minute, I forget to forget it. Though I know I am much too late. You came with someone else today. But for a pretty minute, I forget to forget it.